Citizenship is the status of a person recognized under the custom or law as being a member of a state. A person may have multiple citizenships, and a person who does not have citizenship of any state is said to be stateless. Nationality is often used as a synonym for citizenship in English, notably in international law, although the term is sometimes understood as denoting a person's membership of a nation. In some countries, e.g., the United States, the United Kingdom, nationality and citizenship can have different meanings. Determining factors. A person can be a citizen for several reasons. Usually citizenship of the place of birth is automatic, in other cases an application may be required. Each country has their own policies and regulations which change the criteria of who is issued citizenship. Parents are citizens. If one or both of a person's parents are citizens of a given state, then the person may have the right to be a citizen of that state as well. Formerly this might only have applied through the paternal line, but sex equality became common since the late 20th century. Citizenship is granted based on ancestry or ethnicity, and is related to the concept of a nation-state common in China, where jus sanguinis holds. A person born outside a country, one or both of whose parents are citizens of the country, is also a citizen. States normally limit the right to citizenship by descent to a certain number of generations born outside the state. This form of citizenship is not common in civil law countries. Born within a country. Some people are automatically citizens of the state in which they are born. This form of citizenship originated in England, where those who were born within the realm were subjects of the monarch, and is common in common law countries. In many cases both jus solus and jus sanguinis hold citizenship either by place or parentage. Marriage to a citizen. Many countries fast-track naturalization based on the marriage of a person to a citizen. Countries which are destinations for such immigration often have regulations to try to detect sham marriages, where a citizen marries a non-citizen, typically for payment, without them having the intention of living together. Naturalization. States normally grant citizenship to people who have entered the country legally and been granted permit to stay, or been granted political asylum, and also lived there for a specified period. In some countries, naturalization is subject to conditions which may include passing a test demonstrating reasonable knowledge of the language or way of life of the host country, good conduct and moral character, vowing allegiance to their new state or its ruler and renouncing their prior citizenship. Some states allow dual citizenship and do not require naturalized citizens to formally renounce any other citizenship. Excluded categories. In the past there have been exclusions on entitlement to citizenship on grounds such as skin color, ethnicity, sex, and free status. Most of these exclusions no longer apply in most places. Modern examples include some Arab countries which rarely grant citizenship to non-Muslims, e.g., Qatar is known for granting citizenship to foreign athletes, but they all have to profess the Islamic faith in order to receive citizenship. The United States grants citizenship to those born as a result of reproductive technologies, and internationally adopted children born after February 27, 1983. Some exclusions still persist for internationally adopted children born before February 27, 1983, even though their parents meet citizenship criteria. History. Polis. Many thinkers point to the concept of citizenship beginning in the early city-states of ancient Greece, although others see it as primarily a modern phenomenon dating back only a few hundred years, and for mankind, that the concept of citizenship arose with the first laws. Polis meant both the political assembly of the city-state as well as the entire society. Citizenship has generally been identified as a Western phenomenon. There is a general view that citizenship in ancient times was a simpler relation than modern forms of citizenship, although this view has come under scrutiny. The relation of citizenship has not been a fixed or static relation, but constantly changed within each society, and that according to one view, citizenship might really have worked only at select periods during certain times, such as when the Athenian politician Solon made reforms in the early Athenian state. Historian Jeffrey Hosking in his 2005 Modern Scholar lecture course suggested that citizenship in ancient Greece arose from an appreciation for the importance of freedom. Hosking explained, "It can be argued that this growth of slavery was what made Greeks particularly conscious of the value of freedom. After all, any Greek farmer might fall into debt and therefore might become a slave at almost any time. When the Greeks fought together, they fought in order to avoid being enslaved by warfare, to avoid being defeated by those who might take them into slavery. And they also arranged their political institutions so as to remain free men." Jeffrey Hosking, 2005. Slavery permitted slave owners to have substantial free time, and enabled participation in public life. Polis citizenship was marked by exclusivity. Inequality of status was widespread. Citizens had a higher status than non-citizens, such as women, slaves or barbarians. The first form of citizenship was based on the way people lived in the ancient Greek times, in small-scale organic communities of the polis. Citizenship was not seen as a separate activity from the private life of the individual person, in the sense that there was not a distinction between public and private life. The obligations of citizenship were deeply connected into one's everyday life in the polis. These small-scale organic communities were generally seen as a new development in world history, in contrast to the established ancient civilizations of Egypt or Persia, or the hunter-gatherer bands elsewhere. From the viewpoint of the ancient Greeks, a person's public life was not separated from their private life, and Greeks did not distinguish between the two worlds according to the modern Western conception. The obligations of citizenship were deeply connected with everyday life. To be truly human, one had to be an active citizen to the community, which Aristotle famously expressed. To take no part in the running of the community's affairs is to be either a beast or a god. This form of citizenship was based on obligations of citizens towards the community, rather than rights given to the citizens of the community. This was not a problem because they all had a strong affinity with the polis. Their own destiny and the destiny of the community were strongly linked. Also, citizens of the polis saw obligations to the community as an opportunity to be virtuous. It was a source of honor and respect. In Athens, citizens were both ruler and ruled. Important political and judicial offices were rotated and all citizens had the right to speak and vote in the political assembly. Roman ideas in the Roman Empire. Citizenship expanded from small-scale communities to the entire empire. Romans realized that granting citizenship to people from all over the empire legitimized Roman rule over conquered areas. Roman citizenship was no longer a status of political agency, it had been reduced to a judicial safeguard and the expression of rule and law. Rome carried forth Greek ideas of citizenship such as the principles of equality under the law, civic participation in government, and notions that no one citizen should have too much power for too long, but Rome offered relatively generous terms to its captives, including chances for lesser forms of citizenship. If Greek citizenship was an emancipation from the world of things, the Roman sense increasingly reflected the fact that citizens could act upon material things as well as other citizens, in the sense of buying or selling property, possessions, titles, goods. One historian explained, the person was defined and represented through his actions upon things. In the course of time, the term property came to mean, first, the defining characteristic of a human or other being, second, the relation which a person had with a thing, and third, the thing defined as the possession of some person. J. G. A. Pokic. 1988. Roman citizenship reflected a struggle between the upper-class patrician interests against the lower-order working groups known as the plebeian class. A citizen came to be understood as a person free to act by law, free to ask and expect the law's protection, a citizen of such and such a legal community, of such and such a legal standing in that community. Citizenship meant having rights to have possessions, immunities, expectations, which were available in many kinds and degrees, available or unavailable to many kinds of person for many kinds of reason, and the law itself was a kind of bond uniting people. Roman citizenship was more impersonal, universal, multiform, having different degrees and applications. Middle Ages. During the European Middle Ages, citizenship was usually associated with cities and towns, and applied mainly to middle-class folk. Titles such as burgher, grandburger and bourgeoisie denoted political affiliation and identity in relation to a particular locality, as well as membership in a mercantile or trading class. Thus, individuals of respectable means and socio-economic status were interchangeable with citizens. During this era, members of the nobility had a range of privileges above commoners, though political upheavals and reforms, beginning most prominently with the French Revolution, abolished privileges and created an egalitarian concept of citizenship. Renaissance. During the Renaissance, people transitioned from being subjects of a king or queen to being citizens of a city and later to a nation. Each city had its own law, courts, and independent administration, and being a citizen often meant being subject to the city's law in addition to having power in some instances to help choose officials. City dwellers who had fought alongside nobles in battles to defend their cities were no longer content with having a subordinate social status, but demanded a greater role in the form of citizenship. Membership in guilds was an indirect form of citizenship in that it helped their members succeed financially. The rise of citizenship was linked to the rise of republicanism, according to one account. Since independent citizens meant that kings had less power, citizenship became an idealized, almost abstract, concept, and did not signify a submissive relation with a lord or count, but rather indicated the bond between a person and the state in the rather abstract sense of having rights and duties. Modern times. The modern idea of citizenship still respects the idea of political participation, but it is usually done through elaborate systems of political representation at a distance, such as representative democracy. Modern citizenship is much more passive. Action is delegated to others. Citizenship is often a constraint on acting, not an impetus to act. Nevertheless, citizens are usually aware of their obligations to authorities, and are aware that these bonds often limit what they can do. Different senses. Citizenship status, under social contract theory, carries with it both rights and duties. In this sense, citizenship was described as a bundle of rights, primarily political participation in the life of the community, the right to vote, and the right to receive certain protection from the community, as well as obligations. Citizenship is seen by most scholars as culture-specific, in the sense that the meaning of the term varies considerably from culture to culture, and over time. How citizenship is understood depends on the person making the determination. The relation of citizenship has never been fixed or static, but constantly changes within each society. While citizenship has varied considerably throughout history, and within societies over time, there are some common elements, but they vary considerably as well. As a bond, citizenship extends beyond basic kinship ties to unite people of different genetic backgrounds. It usually signifies membership in a political body. It is often based on, or was a result of, some form of military service or expectation of future service. It usually involves some form of political participation, but this can vary from token acts to active service in government. Citizenship is a status in society. It is an ideal state as well. It generally describes a person with legal rights within a given political order. It almost always has an element of exclusion, meaning that some people are not citizens, and that this distinction can sometimes be very important, or not important, depending on a particular society. Citizenship as a concept is generally hard to isolate intellectually and compare with related political notions, since it relates to many other aspects of society such as the family, military service, the individual, freedom, religion, ideas of right and wrong, ethnicity, and patterns for how a person should behave in society. When there are many different groups within a nation, citizenship may be the only real bond which unites everybody as equals without discrimination. It is a broad bond, linking a person with the state, and gives people a universal identity as a legal member of a specific nation. Modern citizenship has often been looked at as two competing underlying ideas. It assumes people act for the purpose of enlightened self-interest. According to this viewpoint, citizens are sovereign, morally autonomous beings with duties to pay taxes, obey the law, engage in business transactions, and defend the nation if it comes under attack, but are essentially passive politically, and their primary focus is on economic betterment. This idea began to appear around the 17th and 18th centuries, and became stronger over time, according to one view. According to this formulation, the state exists for the benefit of citizens and has an obligation to respect and protect the rights of citizens, including civil rights and political rights. It was later that so-called social rights became part of the obligation for the state. The civic republican, or sometimes classical or civic humanist conception of citizenship emphasizes man's political nature, and sees citizenship as an active process, not a passive state or legal marker. It is relatively more concerned that government will interfere with popular places to practice citizenship in the public sphere. Citizenship means being active in government affairs. According to one view, most people today live as citizens according to the liberal individualist conception, but wish they lived more according to the civic republican ideal. An ideal citizen is one who exhibits good civic behavior. Free citizens and a republic government are mutually interrelated. Citizenship suggested a commitment to duty and civic virtue. Scholars suggest that the concept of citizenship contains many unresolved issues, sometimes called tensions, existing within the relation, that continue to reflect uncertainty about what citizenship is supposed to mean. Some unresolved issues regarding citizenship include questions about what is the proper balance between duties and rights. Another is a question about what is the proper balance between political citizenship versus social citizenship. Some thinkers see benefits with people being absent from public affairs, since too much participation such as revolution can be destructive, yet too little participation such as total apathy can be problematic as well. Citizenship can be seen as a special elite status, and it can also be seen as a democratizing force and something that everybody has. The concept can include both senses. According to sociologist Arthur Stinchcombe, citizenship is based on the extent that a person can control one's own destiny within the group in the sense of being able to influence the government of the group. One last distinction within citizenship is the so-called consent-dissent distinction, and this issue addresses whether citizenship is a fundamental matter determined by a person choosing to belong to a particular nation by his or her consent, or is citizenship a matter of where a person was born, that is, by his or her descent.